Hi, I'm Freya. I study biology, chemistry and maths A-levels at Chichester College. I'm going to be taking you through the cardiac cycle for the A-level biology at XLB course. So just quickly, these are the specification areas covered. So we're going to start with the structure of the heart. First we have the right atrium and the right ventricle, and then on the other side the left atrium and the left ventricle. And here is the thick cardiac muscle of the left ventricle and the septum, which keeps oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood separate. The superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. Then this big one at the top is the aorta. Here's the pulmonary artery, pulmonary vein, and the tricuspid AV valve, and the bicuspid AV valve, the semolina valve, and the other semolina valve. So now we're going to go into the events of the cardiac cycle. The heart beats on average 60 to 70 times a minute through a cyclical process of systole, which is contraction, and diastole, which is relaxation. The first part of the cardiac cycle is cardiac diastole, where both the atria and the ventricles are relaxed at low pressure, causing blood to drain into the atria via the veins. As the blood flows in, the pressure increases, causing the AV valves to open, allowing blood to enter the ventricles. Next is atrial systole, where the atria contract to ensure the blood is completely emptied and enters the ventricle. This increases the pressure in the ventricles so the AV valves close to prevent backflow. Next is ventricular systole, where the ventricles contract, increasing the pressure of the ventricles. Blood then leaves the heart through the SL valves. So it can either be leaving the heart to go to the lungs via the pulmonary artery, which is the blue arrows, or leaving the heart to go to the rest of the body via the aorta, which is the red arrows. So here we're looking at ECGs. It's easiest to just show this in a diagram. So first of all, just taking a look at the pressure. The red line is aortic pressure, the green line is ventricular pressure, and the orange-yellow line is atrial pressure. You can see that the major pressure changes are caused when valves open and close. So you have the AV valves close first, and then the semolina valves open, and then the semolina valves close, and then the AV valves open again. Here you can see it relating to an ECG. So firstly you have the P wave, and then the PR interval. After that is the QRS complex, the QT interval, and the T wave. Now we're moving on to myogenic stimulation, which can sometimes be a little bit more tricky. So we're going to start off with the basics of just labeling. First is the sinoatrial node, or you can just call it the SAN. And then beneath that is the atrioventricular node, the AVN. That little dotted line is the non-conducting layer. This section here is the bundle of His, which splits into Purkinje fibers. And then the tip of the heart is called the apex. So this is the steps. A heartbeat starts at the SAN, which sends electrical impulses across the walls of the atria, causing them to contract. The non-conducting tissue prevents the impulse from spreading into the ventricles. This creates a small delay between the contraction of the atria and the ventricles. The impulses reach the AVN and go through the bundle of His to the ventricles. The bundle of His splits into two branches and carries the impulse. The impulse travels down the septum and through the ventricles. This causes ventricular contraction from the apex upwards, squeezing blood out of the heart. So finally, here are some example questions. This one looks at the diagram comparing aorta, left ventricle and left atrium pressure. The question is, using the information in the graph, describe the pressure changes that take place in the left ventricle during each stage of this cardiac cycle. So you can pause the video, write down your answer, or just think about it. I'm just going to show you the mark scheme because I think that's easier. It says except between 3 and 3 to 5. It's just easier to show. So you get 1 point for saying pressure increases from 0 to 3.3 and then relating that to atrial systole. Another point for saying pressure increases to 14.5 during ventricular systole, and then saying the pressure decreases to 0. The next question relates to the myogenic part. Describe the role of the SLN in controlling heartbeats. So here is the mark scheme and an example answer. The SLN initiates the heartbeat by starting a wave of excitation across the walls of the atria. Okay, I hope this video helped you with understanding the cardiac cycle. Thanks, bye!